When my assistant called me in tears, I was getting my hair and makeup done for that night's charity gala. Through sobs, Emma said the brand had just told her Ryan had called in a favor. The gown was to go to Jenny. Jenny was Ryan's new obsession. She'd set her sights on the dress Allie had lent me and claimed it on the spot as a couture exclusive. Ryan was completely taken with her, so of course, he did whatever she wanted. He said it was Jenny's first time at an event this big, and he wanted her to make a great impression. "It's just a dress," he told me. "Lily, be generous." He knew perfectly well a director I cared a lot about would be there tonight. I'd started preparing a month in advance just to leave him with a good impression. But Ryan didn't care. Maybe I'd played my role too well these past few years. He was sure I loved him to the bone and couldn't live without him, so he acted without restraint. He'd grown used to my good sense and my compromises, and never even considered whether I'd be embarrassed or become a joke. I immediately had my manager reach out to every brand she could. She blasted more than a dozen, yet not one would lend. Gossip that my gown had been snatched before the banquet spread through the circle in no time. A few people came over with fake sympathy. "Lily, if it's this late, there's nothing to be done. There will be other chances. It's just a pity Director Donovan is the headlining guest tonight. They say he's also picking the female lead for his new film." I thought for a moment and dialed Nora's number. Then, under looks of pity or schadenfreude, I waited quietly for 3 hours. Just as I was about to call it a night, Carter's secretary arrived with a dress, Allie's ultra haute couture. Unfortunately, the style wasn't exactly right for me. That night, Jenny stole the show in a gradient blue starlight gown set with 1,000 diamonds. Before the gala had even ended, prepackaged puff pieces crowning her as the latest society goddess were everywhere. Emma fumed. "Lily, you would have looked way better in that dress." Within minutes, those words reached Jenny. She stopped me with a glass of champagne, arched a brow, and said, "I heard Lily wanted to wear my dress too. But Ryan said only a fresh young girl like me can bring out that starry sprite feeling." She deliberately looked me up and down. "Lily, you'll be 30 in 2 years, right? People have to admit when they're getting old." I smiled gently. "At 28, I'm certainly not young in this industry. I hope you never reach my age, Jenny." She blinked, probably still trying to figure out what I meant, but I'd already given a polite nod and walked backstage. By the time she came to her senses and sent me a stream of insults on WeChat, I was back at my apartment, makeup off, about to shower. I read her messages and thought, Ryan's new darling may be beautiful, but beauty means nothing. Pity she doesn't have much of a brain. While I was blow-drying my hair after the shower, messages from Emma kept coming. An endorsement I'd all but secured had been poached by Jenny. The show I was supposed to join tomorrow, Jenny had been shoved into that too, as the second female lead, but with scenes no lighter than mine. To be fair, Ryan is a generous patron. When he's fixated on someone, he's willing to heap every good thing in front of her. I'd received that treatment too. Otherwise, I couldn't have gone from a nobody to a top-tier starlet in just 5 years. It's just a shame his so-called sincerity never lasts. I've seen plenty who gave him their hearts end up with nothing. Someone once sobbed to me, "Lily, tell me, how do you endure wave after wave of women around him?" I quietly handed her a tissue. The truth is, I never expected his sincerity. I learned very young that true love is the least reliable thing. My mother was duped by that so-called love, spending her life as a mistress while insisting she was the one he truly loved. She kept telling me that one day, my biological father would arrive in his Maybach to take us home and acknowledge us as family. When I was little, I believed her and waited with all my heart for Dad to come, until the day my mother took me to kneel and beg my aunt because we didn't have enough for tuition. Until I didn't dare buy sanitary pads to save money and could only steal the paper liners from the school restroom. Until I broke down in tears because someone accidentally knocked over the tiny Children's Day cupcake the school gave me. That's when I understood. Love doesn't fill your stomach and it won't keep you alive. Love is a joke. But that's not what I told Ryan. I told him I loved him with a whole, sincere heart. Because I loved him. I never made demands or put him in a difficult spot. Because I loved him, As long as I could stay by his side, I was willing to endure the flock of women around him. That, of course, didn't really count as a lie. I loved Ryan's money, his connections, and the red carpet path he laid out for me that let me rise so quickly. How could that not count as love? Ryan reveled in the feeling of being adored so wholly. I almost pitied him. If he had ever truly loved someone or been truly loved, he would have recognized instantly that my blazing devotion was nothing but an act. If you genuinely love someone, how could you ever tolerate a third person stepping in? But maybe my acting was simply too good. Over the years, countless people had come and gone around him, yet he never replaced me. Now, however, I wanted to replace him. A year ago, I realized Ryan had very little left to offer me. I was already a top-tier star. I could secure plenty of opportunities on my own, some even beyond his reach. Still, I didn't leave him immediately. First, even if he could no longer boost my career much, he could easily sabotage it, and I couldn't afford to make an enemy of him. Second, as the supposedly devoted innocent by his side, I had to wait until the patron himself tired of me and paid me off, rather than being the one to end things. Otherwise, I would seem too calculating, and which future benefactor would dare take me on? Third, I was waiting for a proper breakup fee. So I bided my time, waiting for Ryan to hand me a reason. But for the past year, he seemed to have calmed down. There were no new women around him. That's why, when I heard that the 2 endorsements and 1 film role Ryan had promised me went instead to Jenny, I quietly let out a breath of relief. Finally, I had my chance to cast him aside. I slept soundly that night, then went to the set early the next morning. By the time the opening ceremony was halfway over, Jenny arrived, deliberately late. Ryan was the main investor of the show, and Jenny, as his new darling, naturally received the highest treatment. A 5-star hotel, a private nanny van, a personal screenwriter, and multiple unreasonable additional scenes, all of which the director accepted without a word. Seeing the director's attitude, I chose to avoid clashing with Jenny. But she wouldn't leave me alone. On the 3rd occasion, she used filming as an excuse to push me into the pond. I pulled her down with me. Unfortunately for her, she couldn't swim. I only ruined my makeup, but she actually swallowed several gulps of the green water. Just then, Ryan came to visit the set. Jenny burst into tears from the humiliation. Ryan swept her up in his arms and looked at me with a mocking smile. "So you've finally grown a temper," he said. Standing in the pond with my head lowered, my face pale, I looked as pitiful as possible. "Apologize to Jenny," Ryan said. "If you do, I'll let this go." "I didn't do anything wrong," I replied softly. Ryan had been embarrassed in front of everyone, and his temper flared. "Then stay in the pond. You can come out once you've figured it out." With that, he walked away with his entourage. Of course, I wasn't foolish enough to just stand there. I waited until the paparazzi had taken enough photos, then collapsed dramatically. Emma came running, shouting for people to carry me back to the hotel. After I showered, she had already circulated the press release. "Young Master Ryan stands up for new flame, old lover left drenched and humiliated." I had just finished blow-drying my hair when my mother called. "What's going on with you?" she demanded. "You've been with Mr. Ryan for 5 years, and you still can't outmaneuver that little fox." Rubbing my temples, I muttered, "Stay out of it." "If I don't care, who will?" she shot back anxiously. "I've told you so many times, hurry up and give Mr. Ryan a son, then your future will be secure." I let out a cold laugh. "You gave that man a son, didn't you? And in the end, aren't you still relying on me to support you?" "You ungrateful child," she snapped. "Mom only wants what's best for you. How can you talk to me like that? If you don't hurry and use your youth and beauty to find a man, what will you do when you're old?" A wave of sadness washed over me. All my hard work in acting, all my struggles to build a career, none of that mattered to her. To her, finding a man was more important than everything I had achieved. She had once relied on her looks to gain a few favors from men, and because of that, she worshipped men like gods. She'd lived the first half of her life off the money left behind by one. In the end, she raised me and my younger brother, and in the latter half of her life, she hoped I'd find a man to support our whole family. She had lived her life as someone's mistress, and she urged me to become a woman who clung to others as well. Instead of encouraging me to fight for myself, she pushed me toward the easy but slippery path. She said that if I just let myself slide down, I would eventually reach paradise. But in reality, that so-called paradise was nothing but a mirage. That's why I refused to let myself fall. I made it this far, partly because Ryan gave me resources, but also because I was diligent, clever, and relentless. That's why I rose so quickly. Unfortunately, others didn't see it that way. Just like my mother, they believed I owed everything to Ryan. And because of that, once this relationship soured, I had to play the role of the most innocent one, the perfect victim, to win public sympathy instead of being condemned. Our battlefield was never the small set of a drama. It was always on the keyboards of the masses. Yet neither Jenny nor Ryan seemed to understand this truth. Jenny was even gloating over her supposed victories. After that incident on set, she strutted around every day like a triumphant rooster, puffed up with pride. Ryan and I entered our first real Cold War. A few days later, Ryan got drunk. His friend called me to come pick him up. Instead, I forwarded the call to Jenny. Furious, Ryan spat out a threat that night. "Lily, I'll wait for you to come begging me." Over the years, I had played the role of a love-struck woman so convincingly that even his friends said Ryan must be truly irresistible. Because cold, distant Lily, who brushed off the advances of so many rich young men, turned out to be nothing more than Ryan's lapdog in private. So when I let my mask slip just a little this time, Ryan couldn't stand it. If he were smarter, he would have realized that when a subordinate no longer cared about their boss's emotions, it usually meant they were preparing to leave. After our falling out, Ryan doubled down on promoting Jenny. He even came to the set in a grand show of support, pressuring me to bow my head. Of course, I would bow. But this time would be the last. I dialed his number, only for him to hang up immediately. That was fine. I never lacked patience. I began sending him message after message on WeChat, my tone earnest and humble. "Ryan, don't be angry anymore. Every day I spend fighting with you, I cry myself to sleep. My birthday is coming soon. Will you come and share a bowl of suzhou noodles with me?" I had once found out that Ryan's mother had died young and his father barely cared for him, leaving him neglected by a stepmother. His only sense of warmth came from memories of his late mother, who was from Suzhou. Every year on his birthday, she made him a bowl of suzhou noodles. So on his first birthday after we met, when he asked me what I wanted, I told him I wanted a bowl of suzhou noodles too. I said I grew up with my grandmother, who was also from Suzhou, and she always made me noodles on my birthday. I was certain Ryan would never bother to investigate which tiny village my grandmother, long buried for more than a decade, came from. And I was right. His eyes turned red as he pulled me into his arms and promised, "From now on, I'll spend every birthday eating suzhou noodles with you." So even though he didn't reply to my messages until much later, writing only, "We'll see when the time comes," I knew he would show up. On my birthday, the sun shone brilliantly. Jenny picked another fight with me over some trivial matter. This time, I didn't back down. I gave her a cold smile and leaned close enough that only she could hear me. "You're only acting arrogant because Ryan supports you. But do you know he's coming to set today to celebrate my birthday? Miss Jenny, rein in your temper. You're about to fall out of favor." Jenny stared at me in disbelief and immediately called Ryan right in front of me. "You're flying in tonight, right?" she asked. "Yeah, I'll drop by the set tonight," Ryan replied, sounding impatient. His tone must have stirred some sense of crisis in her because she shot me a vicious glare and muttered, "Who knows who'll have the last laugh," before storming off. I almost wanted to tell her she should really practice her Mandarin more. The saying was, "Who knows the deer's death," not, "Who knows the sailor's death." Ryan had booked a private room and invited the whole crew to celebrate my birthday. But right as it was time to cut the cake, he suddenly disappeared. I glanced at the tracker on my phone and instantly understood. 6 months ago, when I was planning to distance myself from him, I had secretly installed a one-time location program on his phone. It could be activated from mine, but once used, it would leave no trace. I excused myself politely and slipped out. Following the signal, it didn't take long to find Ryan and Jenny in the stairwell. Jenny, desperate to prove herself, had thrown herself at him, and the sounds of their lips and tongues intertwining echoed in the empty stairwell. I took a deep breath, steadying my trembling hands, then slid my phone into the crack of the door to record. After a few minutes of kissing, Jenny was turned against the wall. Her long gown bunched up around her waist. Ryan pressed her down, and she suddenly glanced back with a sly smile. "Isn't this exciting, Ryan, and to think we're doing this just one wall away from Lily?" Her taunt gave me a perfect shot of her face in clear view. "You're ruining her birthday party," Ryan chuckled. "So what?" Jenny teased. "Tell me, is she better, or am I better?" "Shut up and focus," he muttered. "Ryan, be gentle," she whined. "Who was it that begged me to come here?" Ryan growled, smacking her with a loud crack. She yelped, but clung tighter. When he finished, I glanced at my phone. 6 minutes of footage. Short, but more than enough. I tucked my phone away and decided it was time to make my entrance. I pushed open the stairwell door. They were still in each other's arms, startled when they saw me. Jenny was the first to recover, flashing me a smug smile. "Sorry, Lily, I guess we ruined your birthday party." Ryan quickly straightened his shirt. He hadn't removed much clothing to begin with. He acted casual, asking, "What are you doing here? Have they cut the cake yet?" I stood frozen, trembling, tears spilling down my cheeks. Seeing me cry so pitifully, Ryan gestured for Jenny to leave. She glared at me reluctantly, snatched her underwear from the floor, and as she left, she purred, "Ryan, I'll be waiting in 802. Then she shot me a mocking glance. "You're not even his girlfriend. Why are you acting so self-righteous?" Only after she left did Ryan step forward, reaching to hold me. All right, don't cry, the cake's still waiting. I'll go back with you." I shoved him away. The scent of Jenny's perfume and the stale heat of their encounter clung to him, making me sick. He pulled me into his arms again, and again I pushed him off, harder this time. Before he could explode, I seized the chance to strike first. "Ryan," I choked out between sobs, "how could you do this to me?" He rubbed his temples impatiently. "Lily, you're the one who said that as long as you could stay by my side, you'd endure anything. You've gotten along fine with the other women before, haven't you?" Clutching my chest, I wept. The only reason I could tolerate those women wasn't because I was stronger, but because I loved you more than they did. But how could you trample all over my heart just because I love you? Maybe my tears softened him, because his anger melted from his eyes. "Lily, I really did want to celebrate your birthday. It's all her fault. Come on, I'll buy you a new bag, all right?" I cried harder, shaking my head. "Be good, don't cry. Next time I won't do this again," he coaxed. "There won't be a next time," I whispered. His brows shot up. "What did you say?" I said, "Ryan," I lifted my tear-stained face, "let's break up." For once, Ryan actually lowered himself, but I refused to let him off easy, and I didn't take the step down he offered. Ryan's expression turned cold, his brows sharp. "Take back what you just said, and I'll pretend I never heard it," he said flatly. I didn't answer. Tears streamed down my face, but I shook my head with unwavering resolve. His face darkened, twisted with anger. He let out a harsh laugh. "Lily, think carefully. I never take back what I've said. Once we're done, we're done. There's no medicine for regret." I gave him a calm smile and began the lines I had prepared long in advance. "Ryan, maybe you don't remember, but the first time we met wasn't at Jason's dinner party. It was earlier, at an awards ceremony. That night it poured rain, and you handed me an umbrella. From that moment, no one else could ever enter my heart. I remember it clearly. You were dressed casually, but the umbrella you gave me was from Swim. I remembered you instantly. When we first got together, I thought it would be enough just to stay by your side. Over the years, women came and went around you, yet you never replaced me. Last year on your birthday, you even took me to your brother's gathering and introduced me as your girlfriend. You said it so seriously that I believed you. I thought that if I held on long enough, one day you'd come to your senses and see my worth. But just now, I finally realized it was all my foolish fantasy. My love means nothing to you. Ryan, I won't force it anymore. Thank you for taking care of me all these years. From here on, I wish you nothing but success and happiness." My eyes brimmed with tears as I choked out the words, almost wanting to applaud myself. This was without doubt the highlight of my acting career. I even nearly convinced myself. Without giving him a chance to respond, I ran off sobbing. afraid that if I stayed another second, I would break into laughter. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw Ryan's eyes redden, though maybe it was just my imagination. Oh, and I forgot to mention, my microphone was still on. So the entire exchange between Ryan, Jenny, and me was broadcast live to the crew. Somehow, the recording leaked online. Overnight, my image as a fragile yet resilient woman heartbroken by love swept through the internet. The hashtag #ProtectLily shot straight to #1 on the trending list, followed by #PureLoveWarriorLily. The only white Jasmine in showbiz, and old love new flame. Even the incident where Jenny's company had suppressed the drowning scandal resurfaced. Anonymous posts popped up everywhere. I'm crew. I can only say Ryan must be blind. Jasmine Lily is 10,000 times better than that other woman. The way she looked at him the day she fell into the water broke my heart. The entertainment industry really has someone this pure? I'm crying. Old fans chimed in. Lily's always cold and distant to everyone. But whenever Ryan's name comes up, you can't miss the warmth in her eyes. People said she was only with him for resources, but I always knew she truly loved him. You can't hide love. If their ship isn't real, then the world owes Lily an Oscar. Others speculated, one day Ryan will regret this. He'll never find anyone who loves him the way Lily did. Some even praised my professionalism. The day Lily fainted after falling into the water, the director asked if she wanted to rest. She wiped her tears and said she couldn't delay the crew's schedule for him. Do you understand how much that moved us? Meanwhile, you know who throws tantrums and wastes everyone's time. Because of him, we've had to work twice as hard. More joined in. I can confirm every word. His acting is awful. The teacher had to reshoot again and again. Whenever he had scenes, we were guaranteed overtime. And with that stiff face from too much plastic surgery, how could his acting possibly be good? Yet he still dares to market himself as some fiery peony, while trying to suppress Lily. Shameless. Public opinion almost entirely sided with me. At that moment, I was holding a glass of wine on the 57th floor of Marina Bay Sands in Singapore, staring at the glittering CBD skyline through tear-filled eyes. If the director hadn't only granted me 3 days off, I would have flown to Paris to cry, to London to cry, to New York to cry. But I chose Singapore, not just for the kaya toast I craved, but also because I saw Carter's location was here. Carter was my new target. A year ago, in order to prepare myself for a new patron, I enrolled in the EMBA program at a top business school. Carter, invited back as a distinguished alumnus, came to give us a public lecture on equity investment. I didn't hear a single word of the content. My entire attention was stolen by the opening slide of his presentation. His personal profile. Even as an outsider, I recognized the names of the massive projects he had spearheaded. Out of curiosity, I searched his net worth afterward. The endless string of zeros on the screen left me counting and recounting, unable to even keep track. I stared at those numbers glowing on my phone, then lifted my gaze toward Carter standing at the podium. Suddenly, my ears burned and my chest tightened, my heart racing like a startled deer. After all, women like me, innocent little white flowers, are always the ones most easily struck by love at first sight. Under the pretense of asking a question, I joined the crowd in adding his WeChat. Then, using the way he named his WeChat ID, I tried searching for him across other social platforms and news mentions. Before long, I had tracked down his Shuichu account, his X account, and even a Weibo alt I was 90% sure was his. I spent 3 days consuming every interview and article written about him, then another 3 days combing through his social media posts. That's when I came across a term, due diligence. And I thought to myself, I was born for this. I had already gathered every piece of public information I could. The question now was how to use it. The next time Carter returned to the school to lecture, he reserved a Q&A session. Calm and composed, I raised a question I had spent 2 months crafting, centered on the famous acquisition case that made his reputation. I pointed out a glaring flaw and the risks behind it. That's how men are. If you flatter them endlessly, they won't remember you. But the moment you challenge them, they'll want to spar with you. Sure enough, for the first time, his gaze fixed on me with seriousness. That day I had also dressed carefully, my styling chosen to project the aura of an intellectual woman. I was always adept at building my advantage through differentiation. With Ryan, I positioned myself as more beautiful than the ones who loved him, more loving than the ones who were beautiful, and more obedient than those who were both. With Carter, I aimed to be the most cultured among the beautiful, and the most beautiful among the cultured. Intrigued, he engaged me in discussion. I had rehearsed my responses countless times. Well-reasoned, measured, never aggressive. And I ended with, "Of course, I believe Mr. Carter must have considered the worst-case scenario and the cost of failure. That's why I so admire your courage to burn the boats behind you. That bravery created this legend." Carter smiled. 2 days later, we happened to meet again in an airport lounge. This time he addressed me by name. Opportunities always favor those who prepare. Our flight was delayed, and while fussing with a tea bag, I pretended my new nails were too long to tear it open. I asked, "Carter, would you mind helping me?" He obliged, and from there we drifted into casual conversation. Tea to travel, travel to art, art to philosophy. Every subject he touched on I had already studied. The conversation flowed effortlessly. By the end, Carter said with a smile, "I didn't expect an actress to have such a broad range of knowledge." I responded modestly, "A good actress always studies the field her role belongs to before stepping into character." I caught the flicker of genuine admiration in his eyes. When it was time to board, he offered to carry my suitcase. "Next time, don't be so formal," he said. "I'm just a few years ahead of you. You can call me senior." Who would have thought? Back then, I couldn't even get into a mid-tier university, yet here I was, calling a Harvard graduate my senior. But that wasn't enough. I needed a stronger opportunity to draw him closer. So the night my dress was stolen, the first person I thought to turn to was him. It was both an admission of vulnerability and a test. If he was at all interested, he would help me. And fortunately, I gambled correctly. After the charity gala, I called Carter. "Senior, thank you for helping me out tonight." On the other end, his voice was low and teasing. "And how do you plan to thank me?" I smiled, my lips curling. "Naturally, with something tangible." His voice dipped even lower through the line, brushing against my ear like velvet. My heart trembled, but I steadied my tone. "A friend of mine is opening a steakhouse soon. They've hired a Michelin 3-star team. When it opens, I'll treat you to the best beef, senior." Carter chuckled softly. "All right then." When I returned home, I certainly wasn't going to sit around foolishly waiting for Carter. The very next day, I went straight back to the set, officially ending my relationship with Ryan by leveraging the scandal with Jenny. The director approved 3 days off for me. At first, I thought I'd fly to Hainan and lie on the beach for a couple of days, but when I saw Carter's location pinned in Singapore, I immediately decided to take my chances there. I hadn't expected it to work out, but it did. For 2 days I stood on the rooftop of Marina Bay Sands, letting the wind whip against me, until Carter finally appeared. From the start, I'd been upfront with him, casually mentioning that I had a boyfriend. It was a tactic to lower his guard, to make him believe I wasn't deliberately trying to get close. Now, with my breakup splashed across headlines, I could use that to tug at his sympathy. And once a man begins to pity a woman, he's only a short step away from being moved by her. When Carter came, I already had a line of empty beer bottles beside me, another still in my hand. The November breeze wasn't particularly cold, but when he draped his jacket over my shoulders, I didn't refuse. That kind of unspoken physical closeness between a man and a woman carries its own meaning. I looked up at him, feigning surprise. "Senior, what are you doing here?" He smiled. "I heard a beautiful woman has been standing here in the wind for 2 days, so I came to check on her." I tilted my head sadly, angling my better profile toward him. "Please don't tease me, senior. Broke up with your boyfriend?" he asked. I tipped my head back, took a swig, and laughed bitterly. "Yeah, sorry to let you see me like this." When I reached for another bottle, Carter caught my hand. "If you don't want to smile, you don't have to." His simple words made my eyes sting. Tears welled up and began falling one by one. He opened his arms. "Come on, use your senior's shoulder." I leaned against his chest, restrained, silent, shaking as I cried. After 10 minutes, he sighed into my ear. "Don't cry anymore, you're breaking my heart." I looked up at him, my gaze blurred with tears. Carter studied my foolish expression and suddenly chuckled softly. "Usually you're so quick-witted. How can you be so clueless now?" "Lily, Ryan is nothing more than a spoiled heir riding on his family's coattails. He isn't worth your tears. You deserve better. His eyes shone with a quiet confidence that made me flinch. I stepped back quickly, avoiding his gaze. Thank you for the comfort, Senior. I should go. A spotless white flower like me couldn't afford to shatter her image by jumping into another man's arms too quickly. On the third morning, I flew back home. Perhaps it was the first time Carter had encountered a woman who left without a word, because the moment I landed, I received a WeChat message. Back home? I replied, After crying, I still have to return and keep working. I had no intention of moving too fast with him. There were already countless women eager to climb into Carter's bed. I wasn't going to be one of them. I hadn't worked so hard just to move from Ryan's greenhouse to Carter's backyard. A few years ago, I attended a banquet with Ryan and personally watched a director I admired grovel before investors, and a veteran actress, an international award winner, forced to drink again and again at their insistence. That was when I realized, even if I reached the peak of the industry, in the eyes of capital, I was still just a plaything. So this time, by securing Carter's attention, my ambition was bigger. If I could stir his heart, maybe I could leverage it into something far greater. Emma came to pick me up at the airport, and the moment I got into the car, she eagerly began reporting the past 3 days of public opinion. Jenny tried to defend herself online, claiming that when she and Ryan got together they were both single. But Ryan slapped her in the face during an interview. He told reporters, "I've just had a small quarrel with my girlfriend. Please give us some space. If people keep digging, I'll never win her back." I raised an eyebrow, gesturing for her to continue. Emma smirked proudly. Public opinion exploded. Jenny's been nailed as the mistress. Now there are 2 mainstream viewpoints circulating. One wave of public opinion wanted me to shine alone and never look back. The other wave shipped me and Ryan as a CP, eagerly waiting to watch him suffer as he tried to win me back. I nodded lightly and pressed, "I want to know my current ranking on all the hot lists, the rate of fan growth, and whether any new brands have reached out over the past few days." "All at the top," Emma reported with satisfaction. "The dramas you starred in before are surging in views. Several brands have already made initial contact." By the time she finished her report, the car had reached the set. When I walked in, everyone in the crew looked at me with pity. A round-faced makeup artist even came over and whispered, "Stay strong." I forced a weary smile, thanked them all sincerely, then buried myself back in work. The very next day, Ryan showed up. Of course, he didn't come empty-handed. He brought me a Van Cleef & Arpels Pont des Amoureux watch. "I remember you once said you really liked this one. I placed the order with VCA 6 months ago. It only just arrived," he said. Every time Ryan returned from another woman and wanted me back, he would offer a gift. This watch cost 7 figures at retail, not even counting the purchase requirements. When I was 17, reading romance novels, I could never understand why the heroine would refuse when the male lead offered diamonds or jewels. Now I finally understood. When you can buy it yourself, those things lose their meaning. Some things are far more important than a sparkling trinket. 3 years ago, cornered and desperate, I lowered my head before Ryan and agreed to become one of the flowers in his greenhouse. But in those 3 years, I worked relentlessly, role after role without pause, all so that now I could stand before him with my head held high and refuse to let him keep setting my price. "Mr. Ryan, I can't accept this for nothing," I said flatly. I turned to leave, but he caught my arm. "Lily, this time it was my fault. I've already broken up with Jenny. All her scenes in this drama will be cut. You're still the female lead." "Actually, He rubbed his nose as if trying to find the right words. I cut him off. "Mr. Ryan, your personal affairs have nothing to do with me. If there's nothing else, I'll be going." I walked away quickly. With so many eyes around us, no one dared try to stop me. So instead, he called my mother. On the day filming wrapped, she came to the set. I hadn't seen her in 3 years, and at the moment she saw me, she grabbed my arm. "Come with me right now. You need to apologize to Mr. Ryan." Swallowing my fury under everyone's stares, I dragged her to the car. Once inside, I yanked my arm free. "Are you insane? Ryan was the one who cheated. Why should I apologize?" My mother wailed, pounding her chest. "It was just a fling. Couldn't you endure it?" I let out a sharp laugh. I've endured it for 5 years. Isn't that long enough? She froze, then muttered, but after all, everything you have now is thanks to Mr. Ryan. No, I said coldly. Everything I have is thanks to myself. Yes, Ryan gave me resources, but I had to be good enough to carry them. And besides, he's a major shareholder in the company. Half of everything I earn goes into his pocket. He hasn't lost a thing. Her lips trembled. But you've been with him for 5 years. Don't tell me you feel nothing for him? The rage I had held back finally exploded. I slammed the thermos I was holding against the seat. Feelings? Do you not remember why I was with him in the first place? When I was 22, you stole the money I borrowed through online loans to pay for your surgery and used it to cover my brother's gambling debt. You cried and told me, "What else can I do? The whole family is relying on your brother." I screamed, breaking down. Rely on him for what? I was the one who took out the loan to save your life. She clung to me, sobbing. Lily, I know I've failed you. You don't have to worry about me. I won't treat this illness. I refuse to be your burden. She said it so easily, but how could I possibly not care? I knew the fastest money was in the entertainment industry, so I threw myself headfirst into it, but I underestimated just how cruel it was. At another dinner party, I nearly couldn't protect myself. Ryan appeared in my life like a savior dropped from the sky. He said he could arrange the best thoracic surgeon for my mother, and soon after, the malignant tumor on her lung was removed. He said he could place my gambling-addicted brother in his company, with his own people watching over him. I asked, "And what's the price?" He smiled warmly. "No price. I just like you." At that time, with my mother's illness, the debt collectors hounding me, and an exploitative agency backing me into a corner, I had no choice but to accept Ryan's generosity. In the beginning, he treated me so well that I almost believed we were truly in love. He often told me, "Lily, you don't need to work so hard, you've got me." Sometimes I wavered. He was right. If Ryan was there, why was I pushing myself until I fainted in rehearsals, until I could hardly stand straight from exhaustion? Why couldn't I just relax a little, let myself lean on him? Before I could figure it out, another woman appeared at his side. When I asked about her, he brushed me off with a smile. "It's nothing. Just a fling." The words struck me like lightning. I had always hated the way my mother clung to men for survival, yet here I was, nearly repeating her path. From that moment, I swore to keep myself awake at every second. Never again would I try to rely on anyone else. My fate had to rest in my own hands. From then on, I severed love completely, treating Ryan only as a stepping stone to change my destiny. My mother eventually gave in when I told her, "If you try to pressure me again, I'll cut off your credit card." "Don't believe me? Try it. Let's see if Ryan will give you money to spend." She fell silent. I might not have been able to take full control of my fate yet, but at least I could control hers. After sending her away, I threw myself back into work, and suddenly it felt as though fortune itself was on my side. A luxury brand that had stalled for months suddenly waived its probation period and handed me a makeup line endorsement. Prestigious magazines invited me to shoot their covers one after another, giving me the coveted fashion grand slam. Even a legendary management team I had once thought out of reach extended an olive branch. Blessings fell from the sky one after another, to the point that even Emma grew suspicious. "Mr. Ryan must really be spending a fortune to win you back," she muttered. I didn't confirm nor deny. Deep down, I didn't believe Ryan had that much power. Then at the Phoenix Awards, it all became clear. I won Best Actress, and Carter himself was the one to hand me the trophy. After the ceremony, he sought me out. "Does winning make you happy?" he asked with a smile. In that instant, I understood. These resources weren't Ryan's doing. They were Carter's. Half teasing, half serious, I asked, "If I said no, would Senior think I was ungrateful?" Carter took a step closer, looking down at me with a quiet dominance. "Then why don't you just tell me directly what it is you want?" I lowered my gaze and stepped back to put distance between us. "Senior, you've been showering me with resources and opportunities. What is it you want in return? Are you testing my price?" He clearly hadn't expected me to cut so sharply. I drew a steadying breath and lifted my eyes to his. "When I deal with people, it's always heart for heart. Yet you treat me as though I'm a commodity with a price tag, realizing you've never seen me as your equal. It honestly makes me unhappy. It's late. Excuse me. Without waiting for his reply, I turned and walked away quickly. Sitting in the car back into the city, I replayed the scene in my head. It was a little risky, yes, but if I had simply accepted Carter's generosity, I would have been trapped in another lopsided relationship, a fragile flower watered at someone else's whim. Once was enough. Back home, I sent Carter a photo of a passage from Jane Eyre. Do you think, because I am poor, obscure, plain, and little, I am soulless and heartless? You are wrong. I have as much soul as you, and full as much heart. And if God had gifted me with beauty and wealth, I should make it as hard for you to leave me as it is now for me to leave you. We are equal, as we are. I believed with his education he would understand that what I sought was equality. At the same time, I was subtly pleasing him because in that passage, the woman speaks to the man she loves. Soon after, Carter messaged me on WeChat. Junior, I offended you. Please give me a chance to make it right. I smiled in satisfaction, stretched lazily, and turned off my phone. By the third time Carter asked me out, I softened my stance and gladly accepted. I sat in a Riverview restaurant he had carefully chosen, and with a light laugh, I said, Senior, do you still remember our agreement? I had once tested the waters by telling him I wanted to learn about investment. Back then, Carter clearly didn't take me seriously. He hadn't outright refused, but only said, it's a very professional field. Then, half joking, he added, if you pass the CFA, I'll teach you. I agreed, I reminded him. We shook on it. For a moment, Carter paused, as if the memory had finally come back to him. He looked at me in disbelief. You actually passed? I lowered my gaze modestly and nodded. I had researched it. CFA truly was the best way to enter the world of investment. For that exam, I studied on my iPad during every break on set. Of course, the moment anyone walked by, I would quickly switch back to a script. Because of that, my reputation on set was excellent. Everyone said Lily always studied her scripts whenever she had time, a hardworking actress who could really focus. The only pity, they said, was that she wasn't very bright. After all that studying, she still occasionally flubbed her lines. But they would sigh, heaven rewards diligence. She'll become a great actress one day. Yes, heaven rewards diligence. I passed all 3 levels of the CFA without trouble. Carter asked me why I wanted so badly to learn investing. I just smiled. The truth was, I didn't want to be an actress forever. I wanted to be capital itself. But of course, I wouldn't say that out loud. Instead, I tilted my head and asked, if one day I successfully transition into investment, Senior, will you finally see me as an equal? As a true friend, not just a pretty vase? He gave a helpless laugh. We agreed, no bringing up old debts. Then if you feel guilty, I replied, don't hold anything back when you teach me. Reading from books is always shallow. I learn best by doing. After a pause, Carter nodded. All right. With him as my teacher, I began looking for small projects to test the waters. Many opportunities normally wouldn't have been open to me, but when I invoked Carter's name, people would allow me in with a token share, 10, 20, maybe 50,000. I was cautious. Even for a 500,000 RMB project, I shamelessly asked Carter to vet it for me. He was happy to guide me step by step, and I learned quickly. After a few small projects, our conversations evolved from one-sided Q&A to genuine back-and-forth discussions. My investments were all turning profits, and soon I began to build a reputation of my own in the circle. That steakhouse my friend had been planning was delayed for over half a year. And so Carter finally tasted the Wagyu I had promised him, just as my projects started paying out. I've been hearing everyone say you're an investment genius, he said with a smile. I placed a perfectly grilled slice of Wagyu onto his plate, smiling sweetly. That's only thanks to you being such a good teacher. Carter caught my hand, his eyes steady. You know I've never wanted to be just your teacher. I slipped my hand away deftly, lowered my eyes and sighed softly. Senior, give me a little more time. He wasn't pleased, of course. Anyone would be unhappy after half a year of not sleeping with the person they wanted. But I wasn't worried. Powerful men always have higher needs than others. There were plenty of women willing to warm his bed, but only one who could sit across from him and talk about philosophy and investment like an equal, me. That night, I sent him a message. I must be the kapok tree beside you, standing tall with you as tree to tree. It was a verse from Shootings to the Oak Tree. I was telling him that everything I worked for was to be worthy of him. Carter clearly understood. Soon after, he introduced me to an entertainment-focused equity fund, giving me a chance to participate. The buy-in was steep and I hesitated, but if it succeeded, I could be financially free in one stroke. He noticed my hesitation and smiled. "Don't worry, I'll cover you." I shook my head and declined politely. "How is that any different from you just wiring money straight into my account?" I asked. Carter chuckled. "Do we really have to draw the lines so clearly?" I blinked at him. "Not really. It's just, when it comes to money, I have my own ways of solving things." And then it struck me. Ryan still owed me money. A severance fee for an old lover. After we broke up, he came looking for me several times. He couldn't accept that I had left so suddenly. At first, he tried gifts, flowers, every form of coaxing. When I ignored him, he shifted to pressure, trying to suppress me and force me back to his side. He wasn't powerful enough to dominate the entire industry, but he did cause me trouble. That video of him entangled with Jenny, I had kept it tucked away, thinking it wiser to leave a line in case our paths crossed again. But now, Ryan had crossed me one too many times, so I decided to collect some interest. I had Emma find someone to act as a broker and take the video to Ryan. Whatever money she got out of him, we'd split 80-20. I told Emma, "Have her say this. You don't want people to know it only lasted 6 minutes, do you?" Emma shot me a thumbs up. I stomped down hard on Ryan's pride with the biggest number I could name. In the end, he agreed. He would never know that money found its way into my hands. In his heart, I was still the woman who once loved him deeply, only to be left heartbroken. Always leave a line. Who knows when cooperation might be needed again. I carefully vetted the fund, 3 rounds of due diligence, and with Carter's endorsement, I made my decision. I poured in every cent of cash I had. I hadn't expected it. The very next year, one of the films that fund backed became a blockbuster, and I made back my principal in one stroke. By the 3rd year, the fund's entertainment company listed in Hong Kong. By the 5th, I cashed out, completely financially free. During those years, I even dated Carter briefly for a year. I wanted to see what it was like to be with a man of his power. We parted amicably, my decision. After all, I'd had the experience, and it wasn't anything extraordinary. Mostly, men like him lacked a sense of service. Still, Carter never quite let go of me. He often invited me out, and I would join if the mood struck. At the peak of my career, I transitioned behind the scenes, shifting from actress to capital itself. I became a legend of the industry. The line of men wanting to chase me stretched from my doorstep all the way to Paris. Broad shoulders, slim waists, sleek sports cars, and honeyed words, each one more flattering than the last. I picked one sweet talker and presented him to my mother. "Life is short," I told her. "Seize joy while you can. Don't waste it staring at the moon in an empty courtyard." Her lifelong faith crumbled. She stopped preaching to me about true love or depending on men for survival. And when a young puppy of a man had her in his arms, she finally admitted, a woman should hold her fate firmly in her own hands. While vacationing in Tahiti, I stumbled across a trending video online. My fans had edited together all my shining moments. At the end, they'd spliced in a clip of Ryan in an interview. His eyes were full of longing as he praised me. Lily was the only pure white jasmine. I laughed softly. It reminded me of years ago when Carter had asked me what I truly wanted. Back then, I couldn't say it. I couldn't let anyone glimpse my ambition. But now I could speak without hesitation. I never wanted to be a fragile flower nurtured in some benefactor's greenhouse. What I wanted was to be the one who owned the garden.